Today's episode of Future Says is proudly sponsored by Oracle. Oracle offers integrated suites of applications plus secure autonomous infrastructure in the Oracle Cloud. For more information, check out www.oracle.com. On today's episode of Future Says, we have Viji Krishnamurthy. Viji currently leads Generative AI solutions at Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, having held previous roles managing data science, IoT, and Industry 4.0 projects. Viji holds a doctorate in operations research from Northwestern University and holds multiple patents on AI and machine learning applications. Hello and welcome to Future Says, Viji. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you for inviting me to be in this show, Sean. Good to meet you again.
So Viji, from talking to you before, you've been involved in just about every big technology over the last few years. Obviously, generative AI now, AI before, IoT, quantum computing. You're involved in so many different things. Can you tell the audience just a little bit about that background and how you've embraced so many new technologies?
Happy to do that. So I think I graduated from my PhD in somewhat in a right time. I think because I found myself coming out of PhD with having worked on optimization techniques and how to really find the optimal solution for business problems and complex business problems that have conflicting constraints, and how do you really find the best possible solutions based on what you know and what you project for the future, right? And I started my career as a data scientist at Philips, working on a variety of problems. And again, I had a lucky break mainly because I was the only PhD with optimization math background in a team of about 1,500 PhDs. Who were all mostly physics, chemistry, color science focused or medical focused PhDs. So I had plenty of data on all the products that we were producing. And the goals were to find predicting the performance of the product while we are manufacturing, or predicting what combination of products will actually work for customers' requirements, or figuring out what is the optimal pricing that we could do for our downstream, suppliers and distributors, and also figuring out what is the performance goals that we should set for the next few years based on all the semiconductor optoelectronics projections. So I could see how machine learning can fit into so many things, like between marketing, supply chain, production, customer engagement, all of this. So which gave me quite a bit of exposure to what we could do. And then I moved into IoT because there was a beginning of IoT, and I saw IoT as a sea of data. And what is more fun for a person with machine learning interest, compared to data, right? So I want to be where the data is. So, and I was really intrigued by how we could connect a sensor to everything that we interact with. So I was in IoT for about 7 years, between commercial building IoT, where I collected data from sensors that were attached to HVAC as well as lights, and figuring out the traffic patterns within the building, and how to really utilize that to optimize the energy consumption, as well as improve the comfort and experience of the users of the building, right? So, and then right about that time, Oracle was starting an IoT product line. So I was part of the founding team member of IoT team, where I led data science for all of our IoT applications as a chief data scientist, as well as I led the product intended for Industry 4.0 transition for manufacturing. So we built production monitoring IoT application that helps you to connect to any one of your equipments, robots, automated material handling systems, in as well as your vehicles, forklifts, everything, and then collect data and utilize that data for optimizing your throughput, cycle time, as well as make your planning, day-to-day planning automated, as well as week-to-week planning and forecasting. And then recently, a couple of years ago, again, Oracle was starting to release AI services. And again, I got into a interesting conversation about it, and then decided to lead the AI services products. And then once I have done that, as the AI is changing into generative AI, now I'm actually leading generative AI solutions. So the journey is, like, I wouldn't say it's extremely well planned, Sean, but I think it's sort of, I think I've been the right time period where the compute has enabled us to take advantage of all of the neural network techniques that were, invented before, put it into business problems and make them deliver the value. And I've been lucky enough to actually see that happening, like with compute becoming cheaper, cloud computing becoming almost, standard.
Yeah, and you say market conditions and the advantages that compute, or the advances in compute over recent years, has enabled the move to these new areas. Thinking about the next big revolution there, is it quantum, VG, or what do you think is going to happen there next?
As you learn more about quantum mechanics, right, you start to actually think about like how it doesn't line up with the way that we think about the real world. We think that if things are in certain place, it is in certain place, but quantum actually challenges that idea. Nothing is in any place at any point of time. It's actually, it's all probabilistic, right? So which actually makes it so interesting to think about philosophically, as well as from technology perspective. So I'm a fan of quantum in terms of observing where it goes. I'm more curious about how quantum computing will actually make it even a bigger leapfrog improvement in terms of how we can expedite computing and how we can solve some of the problems that we are at, that are at the edge of the envelope that we are at, right? Because if you see, like you have seen how the compute has been doubling and tripling and quadrupling as we move forward with the years. You're also seeing how the AI models, based on the number of data and the number of parameters, how the accuracy is improving over the years. And if you actually delve into this, you will see the size of the data that you have and the compute you are using and the algorithmic framework that you're using. These are the three edges of the feasible region. Essentially, you're just trying to either increase the amount of data, increase the amount of compute, or improve your algorithmic framework. And by doing one of these three knobs, or more than one of these three knobs, you are actually making leapfrog improvements in the way the model could actually behave. So for me, when I look into like the data, of course, like everything in the internet is a world model that we are working with. We can talk about whether it is actually a full representation of the world model or not as a subsequent discussion. But and then we have the compute. Compute today, it is actually increasing by doubling, tripling. But is quantum going to give a huge leapfrog? And with that, would that give us a huge freedom to feed as much data as we want and quickly calculate? And then with our current algorithmic framework, of course we have to update it for quantum computing. Can we actually make a bigger progress? So that is my curiosity, essentially.
And I think if you take that triad that you said, you've got the data, and I certainly come across a lot of people that are still complaining about data either not having enough or not having good enough quality data. And I'm sure we'll get onto that, VG, as one of the barriers to entry, maybe. We spoke about computing, and then the third is that algorithmic framework. I mean, there's been such a leapfrog there in the last year with everything around generative AI. That's obviously the focus of your current role at Oracle. So can you tell us first, what is generative AI and why is that different to what we've been defining as AI over the last few years, let's say, in industrial applications?
Yeah, so in the industrial applications, if you see, a couple of years ago, our AI meant that we are, focused on how do we take historical business data and use those patterns and then predict what is going to happen in the future with what probability, so that I can use that to make business decisions, right? Like, so for example, you can think about forecasting, like, how was my sales in the last 5 years, and how do I project the future sales so that I can make decisions on, capacity and capital investments and etc. Same thing if you look at product quality. You look at what are all the manufacturing and the supplier parameters that contribute to a specific performance of the product in the historical data, and then try to use those patterns and then train a machine learning model that learns that pattern, and then once I provide a manufacturing parameter and a set of supplier parameters, can it actually project what is the probability with which a product is going to be of certain quality, right? So that is the kind of machine learning and AI models that we have built. We've also built some language models, like for example, if I give a bunch of text, it can tell you what is a sentiment. Say, for example, customers writing, their feedback on how the product is performing, and whether it is a positive sentiment, negative sentiment, you could do. So those are the things that we have been doing for the last few years. What we have seen in the end of last year is that we have seen a huge leap in the generative AI, because generative AI is not just repeating or mimicking or producing whatever you have produced, whatever you've taken, like just not observing the pattern and projecting what is the probability with which that pattern is going to occur in the future. It is not doing that. It's actually generating a new content. So in the case of language, right, can I actually feed all of the all of my job descriptions, for example, like, all the jobs that I've hired in the company, and feed the job description and then train a model and then say, make that model to generate a new job description for a product manager located in Seattle with 12 years of experience, with experience in Java, Python, and AI, right? Can I, with the natural language instruction, like a prompt, can I actually get the system to generate a completely new job description? It is not going to exactly, the job description that is generated by the generative AI is not going to be exactly a copy paste of anything in the past. It's actually taking the network is actually taking the knowledge of what you have fed as the past job description and then producing a completely new content that is relevant based on the question that you're raising. I think this is a big leap that we made in the last year. And what that really results in is it has opened up a lot of opportunities for automating a variety of business functions, like business processes that we do today. Like, wherever you are generating language content, can I actually generate a first draft of the content using generative AI? Whether it is job description, contract documents, or, automating, like writing personalized email, personalized promotions, loyalty program promotions. If you think about it, you can generate specific automated one that is personalized for an individual task. And then that actually results in a huge efficiency gain, right? You can also do quite a bit of extraction. Like I can give like 100-page document or 1,000-page document to a system and then start asking questions. So if you step back on it, right, like as an individual in a business environment, we are always making business decisions as to should I do this or should I do that? And if you think about it, to make any one of these business decisions, right, we are either consuming a large amount of data and understanding and then making those decisions. And how can I really expedite that employee experience? Like, how can I create a chatbot where I can just start asking the question and then the chatbot answers employee's exact question so that the specific knowledge is delivered to the employee at the specific time in the specific format so that the employee can be quickly making the decision that she or he wants to do. Right? Same thing. And then once I have made the decision, I have to act on that decision. While I'm acting on the decision, how can I automate many of those? Like if acting on the decision requires me to write a very detailed email, can I automate that? Acting on that decision makes me to, create a large contract document. Can can I automate that? Those are where we see huge benefits. And if you actually look into what we do in a business environment, many of these, many of the functions that we do are actually overlapping with these kind of deliveries, like understanding content, generating content. So as a result, I think what we have been seeing with generative AI is that it's going to be hugely transformative across the enterprises.
And talking about those use cases, Viji, I mean, me personally, I use generative AI in some of the public forums a lot. It's sensational. It is complete step change. But I know you have a background in industry, you have a background in IoT, you have a background in these more industrial applications, let's say. Do you see people in manufacturing, in logistics, in engineering using these types of models? What would be the use cases there?
Yeah, I think if you take manufacturing particularly, right? Manufacturing, a typical manufacturing customer has a huge knowledge base on how the equipments work, how the equipments are maintained, how the products are produced, what process parameters are optimized. The entire manufacturing runs on a large number of documents that are making up the knowledge base as to how to produce a product, right? And those knowledge documents are today created by individuals, either a process engineer, product engineer, equipment engineer, maintenance engineer, you have variety of these individuals creating these documents. Those documents, generation of those documents has a huge potential for utilizing generative AI. Like, for example, using the equipment vendors' documents and the past similar equipment process documents, can I auto-generate the first draft of the process document, for example? Or can I, if you're a maintenance engineer, depending on the symptom that you're observing in terms of what is the type of a failure, can I auto-generate step-by-step instructions as to how to solve, right? This is one of the use cases that I'm working on. Given, can we actually enable the maintenance engineer, irrespective of the years of experience, can we level set everybody's knowledge to a standard, to the same standard? Irrespective of whether somebody is only 5 years experience versus 25 years experienced, can we level set their knowledge? The other is like in manufacturing as well as logistics, verticals. Call center efficiency improvement and personalized delivery for the customers, suppliers calling into call centers is a huge use case that we see often in the customers that we talk to. For example, say you have a call center, you have a chatbot that is addressing the call center, as a first step. And how do you power that chatbot with generative AI so that based on the natural language question that the customer or the supplier is raising, can I get the chatbot to take advantage of the entirety of the knowledge base that you have, like your intranet sites as well as your documents, and and then answer the question so that more questions can be resolved at the chatbot level rather than sending it to an agent, human agent, right? And then if in case the chatbot is not able to solve, but it needs to really transfer it to an agent, how do you really quickly, we can use generative AI to summarize the chat in a very succinct 3 bullet points or 4 bullet points, so that when it gets transferred to a human agent, the human agent has to just spend like 10 seconds to read what had happened so far, so that that person doesn't ask the same question to the customer again, what had been discussed in the chat. This is all language generative AI that we are talking about, and there's also quite a bit of image generative AI use cases coming up in manufacturing. Like how do you really iterate on your design? So there's lot of exciting things happening here, Sean. Yeah.
Yeah, generative design is something that comes up a lot. And I mean, the last one you mentioned about the company intranet, I've seen, especially for new employees coming in and being able to scour these internal systems to get their answers
Yeah.
really effective, really productive. It's, again, a game changer.
Yeah.
You mentioned two types of, let's say, users or people that may interact with these types of models. You might have the executives, and then you might have a business analyst or a supervisor or an engineer or somebody within the business. You can answer this question whatever way you would like in whatever order, but two-part question. What should an executive be doing today with all of this new innovation? How should they be thinking we need to leverage this better? And how should the person who's interacting with the machine or interacting with the data, how should they be thinking? What should be the first thing they do tomorrow after listening to this?
Yeah, great question, right? So, if you think about the executives in a manufacturing logistics sector, I would say the like as an executive, how do I really enable my employees to have access to the entirety of the knowledge base the company has, as well as any relevant knowledge that external systems have? Like, if you're a semiconductor manufacturer, obviously there's a lot of, semiconductor research happening on the daily basis. People are publishing new ways of, producing chips and any like microelectronics or optoelectronics chips. So, like, how do I really get my employee access to anything that is available as a company? Like, the company's its own performance, its own financial performance, product supplier, supplier product, WIP, all of this, plus also any of the external content, right? Like, how do I get that content readily available to them and help them make the decisions that are optimal for the business, right? That's how I would think about it as an executive. And if you peel that, right, then you're starting to think about how do I really take advantage of generative AI to take advantage of all of that information so that it can produce the right information for my employee at the right time when they need it, right? As well as how do I use the generative AI to help my employee to produce the right content that is needed to make the business move in the right direction, right? So that's what the executives need to think about, and I would say it's a long game. As an executive, I would say they should think about this generative AI journey as a long game. It's not something that you do it today and then 2 days later everything happens. It needs to be looked at as, because the generative AI models are changing and improving on the daily basis. If you look at research papers, there is something published every day on the vulnerabilities of the model, as well as how to overcome that vulnerability, right? So it's going to grow, it's going to get better over the next years. And the other point that I want to make from executives, the time to invest is now, because it's not like sometimes when I hear from in certain conversations, oh, should we wait for 2-3 years for it to really stabilize and then take? That's not how I would like the companies to think about it, because in that 2-3 years you may be missing out on some of the efficiencies that you could have gained, because the efficiencies that you're talking about are so pervasive. Like it is on the day-to-day activities of employees, as well as the longer term product design, product development, research and development areas. So I think it is better to invest and then incrementally grow with it, rather than waiting for it to stabilize in a way, right? So on the individuals, like business analyst or supervisor, manufacturing leaders, right? I would say look for opportunities where the inefficiencies are happening. Like, is the inefficient is are you spending the most time in customizing your single pane of glass dashboard every day for like 4 hours? If that is the case, can I actually put a natural language interface to that dashboard so that you create some basic visualization which gives enough context on what data that you're looking at, what tables are you looking at, what schema, and what information is available. And then you put a natural language interface, like a chat interface with the large language model powered as a backend, and where any executive or the business analyst or the manufacturing engineer can go in and then start asking questions. So what is the yield yesterday? What is the yield yesterday as opposed to what was the yield on Monday of last week? Are the manufacturing parameters different between last Monday and this Monday? Kind of like natural language questions I can ask, and then the visualizations can be generated, which requires large language model to understand your natural language and then convert it into a SQL query if it is a structured data, and then query the database, produce that resultant data in JSON format so that can be fed to your visualization, whatever visualization tool that you use, and then produce that, right? If you are able to create that, again, you're improving the employee's experience of reducing the amount of time that they're customizing the dashboard for every user persona, and then just creating essentially like a playground for them to just go ask any question that they want and then make a decision, right? So I think so I would say, as individual users like business analyst or a manufacturing leader, I would say look for those opportunities. Where are you spending the most time?
Yeah, and like you said, Viji, I mean, there's things changing every day in this space. There's papers being released every day, lectures happening every day, vulnerabilities coming to light every day, new opportunities every day. For someone in the business looking at this, how are they supposed to stay up to date with what's the latest and greatest? What challenges should they be aware of? Do you have any advice on how to stay at the forefront of what's happening?
So this is a very interesting question, Sean. Like, I think there is no magic pill. I can tell you that for sure. It is, the things are changing all the time. And, because if you see the number of parameters in the generative AI model, it just keeps on increasing as the number of parameters and the number of data used, the accuracy keeps on improving. And there is a very healthy open source effort that is going on, compared, as well as improvements on the closed models. I think being in having been in data science, machine learning, AI, and generative AI now, I think the one advice I give to folks who like to be in this field, say, just you have to continuously learn. You have to always look for what is happening now, and also kind of think through what are the edges of the envelope where it is going to break. It is going to create a breakthrough. Is it in the, like the way that we talked about, is it in the compute, is it in the data, is it in the algorithmic framework, or is it in the use cases, or there specific market vertical that is going to see a breakthrough? Those type of, like, you need to really create a mental model by studying quite a bit of these content and keeping up with the content. My go-to place is, like, for me, I learn by reading. I like reading a lot more than listening and seeing videos. There is no shortage of information out there. Okay, like, whichever preference that you have, whether it is reading blog, reading research papers, or reading books, or listening to podcasts or YouTube videos, quite a bit can be consumed from that. I think I tell I tell the graduate students that I mentor, who are wishing to be in AI field in their career, things like two steps. One step is you have to know how you learn the best. Like whether it is reading. So that's how the first step. of understanding how you learn. And the second is kind of intentionally allocating certain time in your day or the week to really spend on it. And reading and then sitting back and creating a mental model as to like how these interconnect and where is this going. You have to spend quite a bit of time understanding where these AI models are heading and how you actually can, like, and as an executive or of a company or as a user, how you can see the pattern of where this is heading in the next couple of years and how my current investment should be so that it can actually adjust to those changes.
Talking about where this is heading then, Viji, what do you think we would be talking about at the end of 2024 if we had this discussion at the end of next year instead? Do you think there's different things we'll be talking about?
I think generative AI is going to actually grow substantially over the year to year and a half period, for sure. The generated content is not exactly replication of what the model has seen, but it is actually the fresh content based on all the knowledge that the model has gained during the training process, because you have given a bunch of data as a model of the world, so I think, if you see, is that actually doing everything a human does? No, right? Like you could argue that whether is the internet data sufficiently describes the world as we live in. No, not really, but it has a certain world model, like, based on whatever we have stored. I'm sure that data will keep on augmented as we go. But leaving the data aside, right? There are some things that the generative AI don't do well today. Like, for example, generative AI, because it is predicting always the next word, the language model, it is not actually looking at few steps in the future and then figuring out what is the next best thing to do. Like if you have read this book by Daniel Kahneman, right? Thinking Fast and Slow, he talks about these two systems that we apply as humans. One is a system 1 and system 2. System 1 is like instinctive, immediate, whereas system 2 is sort of like rational, handles very complex decisions, and it is sort of slow, and because you consume the information, you make decision, you validate, and then you come up with answers, right? So large language model today is kind of a system 1 model, which does like instinctive work, like because it's generating one step at a time. So there are many tasks that we do as a system too, like that language models are not good at. And this is a huge area of research right now, and I think there's quite a bit will happen over the next year to year and a half on this. Right? Like, for example, if you tell the large language model, take 30 minutes, read all of this, and consume all of this information and come back with some answers, right? Like that is not something it does today, right? You can instruct it and say step by step, follow these steps, but you have to, that is an instruction that you can provide it to make it work. Yeah. But many of the decisions that we make are consuming a large amount of data and combining them and making the decision in a kind of a more rational, conscious mode, right? Like, and that I think is going to quite a bit improve. The other aspect, I think, in the next, what we will be talking about, in the next year, is how we were able to potentially, like I'm hoping, how we are able to create these generative models to be improving on their self-improvement mode. Today, we know how to train these neural networks systems to self-improve by repeating the particular task on all its variations and finding the best way to maximize the reward. But if it is a very specific task, like, playing AlphaGo game or chess game or whatever, right? Like, the reward functions are very simplistic and you can easily define it. The reward function is you have to, take out all the opponent in the board game or whatever, right? So you can do that. But in real world scenario, the reward functions are a lot more complex. And the reward functions are not very simplistic in the sense that it changes over time, it changes over the conditions. So, one of the things that I think we will figure out is, will we be able to make these generative AI models improve, self-improve, using exploration of all the variations, or will we have subtask based models, generative AI models, that where the reward functions are easier to define, and then the large language models interact with each other to come up with the optimal decisions, self-improved decisions for the complex model. Today, we don't have a system. We still don't have a good way of making one large language model collaborate with another large language model to make the decision. Each of them make their own decisions on their own, right? So there are two things we have to do. One is to figure out how to subset these complex problems into a smaller problems where the reward functions can be simplistic enough that you can actually self-improve. You can apply self-improvement techniques, and then how to really make sure that these language models can, communicate with each other to make the better model. And I'm sure something will happen over the next 12 months on this, and then we will be looking at it.
So it sounds in general, Viji, like the future is very bright. We should all be excited. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. Future is definitely bright. There's so much is going to happen over the next 12, 18, 24 months. I'm excitedly looking forward to it. And, let's catch up in a year or two and see where we are.
Sounds good. Viji, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Oracle, by the way, for sponsoring all of season 4 of Future Says. It's been a great season. We're looking forward to continuing this collaboration into the future. Viji, we look forward to talking at the end of next year, and all the best with everything in the meantime.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you for joining us on Season 4 of Future Says. Stay tuned for more information on Season 5, which will be coming to you live from CES in Las Vegas.